Hi, welcome to Paranormal Kativity. Today I want to talk about something very interesting to me because I've experienced it myself, and I know a lot of people who have too, and that would be water droplet phenomena. And this kind of has two different categories to it. So there are people who experience this with purely just the sensation of water hitting their skin, but no evidence of water. And then there are other people who experience actually seeing a water droplet on them somewhere with no known source. And I know I've experienced both types, so this was really interesting to me. And it turns out a ton of other people have too, because the research on the internet was insane. Like, tons of pages of people just talking about their personal experiences with this, and then their own personal beliefs as to why it's happening on a paranormal level and also on a physical human level. So I kind of wanted to address both of those and open up some conversation in the comments for you guys to also share your own experiences, so that way I can read them because I find them very interesting, and everybody else can kind of share theirs too and know that you're not alone in feeling water for no reason. So first of all, we'll start with just the sensation or the feeling of water hitting your skin. And there are a lot of people who think that this happens for a number of reasons, especially people who have this occur frequently. And that could be times of stress or anxiety, physical stress, metabolic stress, neurological issues or misfirings. But really, there's actually a technical term for what this is medically, which I'm going to list here because I'm not attempting to pronounce that because I know I'm going to do it wrong. But that basically means phantom feeling, or more specifically, an abnormal sense of touch. So that abnormal sense of touch can manifest in a lot of different ways to different individuals. So some people will feel like an itching or a burning sensation. Sometimes you'll feel like pins and needles or like an electric shock kind of feeling. But the instance we're talking about today would be the feeling of wetness. Even though this has an actual reason behind it, a medically diagnosed reason, people who experience the phantom water droplets sometimes think that even though it's just purely a feeling, it's still paranormal. So really it kind of depends on the individual and their experience and the situation around it to decide what that is for them. But some people do feel like this is still a paranormal experience, even whenever no water actually manifests, and that sometimes it could be linked to being touched by something unseen. Actually having water manifest and land on you to where it's visible and you can see it and you know it happened is a totally different ballgame though. And a lot of different people in the paranormal community feel like there's a lot of different reasons behind it. Some people think this is connected to the miraculous statues that can cry actual tears, which is a super weird thing. If you've never heard of it, you should look into it because it's friggin' creepy. But whether it's manifesting water or tears, the bringing of water from an unknown source to them is miraculous. And a lot of times with at least the statues, they have a connotation of having healing properties and that it's something very loving. People will at least consider it to be a very lucky sign, and sometimes at those statues people will ask favors and ask wishes to be granted, so people think that this is like an everyday or more common version of that. For people who experience this on a regular basis, which there's quite a few of, they've kind of developed some different reasons as to why it's happening or what it means. It could just be simply a sign from something unseen, whether it be an entity that's around, a loved one, whatever you feel like it is. But some people feel like it's just a sign of their presence and letting you know that they're there. And when it comes to signs, some people also feel like it might be a sign of something negative from their own experiences, having linked it to possibly a warning about illness or death. That was a very small percentage of people, but still, they reported it. A lot of people too feel like it's connected to what you are going through in your everyday life. So a sense of heightened emotion or high stress level or a lot of sorrow that you're dealing with or unresolved grief, things like that might bring about this. And it was kind of interesting because they related it to the drawing that's kind of iconic in most cartoons of somebody who's really sad or upset having a cloud follow them and rain on them. They kind of made it seem like that's a more realistic version of that happening in real life. Others feel like this is just a very rare form of poltergeist activity, which you've seen my video on poltergeists. Poltergeists are noisy ghosts, and they'll either manifest through actual physical movement of something or sound, and it's something that you can't really ignore. So that would make sense to an extent. And then probably the most pseudo-scientific reason behind it for some people is that having an energy come close to you changes the atmosphere and especially the temperature, which is why on a lot of like paranormal investigation shows, they will find cold spots in buildings. So according to them, the creation of that energy in that room makes the temperature fluctuate so drastically and so quickly that it creates spontaneous condensation just in the atmosphere around you that ends up actually hitting you. There was one instance as well where somebody described actually seeing the source of the phantom water droplet. They described it as seeing just like a very faint dot roaming around the ceiling, kind of like an orb, but they described it as kind of a grayish, opaque kind of shade, and then they would actually see the droplet fall from that. I think it was only one person who described having a source for the water droplet, but I found that very interesting because, I mean, other than that, what could it be? Most people who experience this phenomenon are indoors, so if you're outside, of course, that could be dismissed as possibly you really did feel one or one really did fall on you. I know with myself I've experienced both types of this in my real life. Whenever it's purely sensation, it seems like it's occurred where it's right on the top of my head. I know I've felt that multiple times before, and when I've felt my head, it didn't feel wet. Of course, you can't, see the top of your own head, but I would assume with that, it is just the purely sensation version of this experience. And then with actually seeing it hit me, I know I've experienced it probably at least 2 or 3 times, but one time stands out in particular as being exceptionally weird, where I was in my car, it was daytime, it was not raining, and I was in the driver's seat, so the left side of the car, my right arm is in the center of the car. Windows are all up, no outside contact. I'm getting ready to drive the car, and a water droplet falls on my forearm. I feel it, I look down, it is on me. And I just kind of freeze and try and analyze the situation. I remember like I felt the ceiling of the car, the roof of the car, and there's nothing there. I know that my car itself is not damaged. This happened years ago, and it's never happened again in the car, so I don't really have a reason behind that. And I didn't really think a whole lot about it at the time, which now thinking back on it is kind of weird because it is something strange to have happen, but I think it's just kind of our normal human everyday self to kind of dismiss things like that because you're like, oh, well, that was weird, and then you go about your business. But now looking at all of these other people's experiences with this, it really is a weird thing to go through, and I just wanted to see if any of you've ever gone through this, or if you're like me and you did and you didn't really think a whole lot about it, you just thought it was weird, and now you realize it's a thing. That just kind of blew my mind that this was something so many people experience, and I'm going to link below so you can go read about other people's experiences with this as well. But I would love to hear about your own experiences with this, if you've gone through it, and if you have, what you might link it to, if you have a reason behind it. I know whenever it's happened to me, I think whenever it's hit me on the head, I did wonder if it was something paranormal. I really don't know if it was. Now that it's something that's diagnosed, that I actually know the reason behind, I didn't have anything else indicate that something else was going on or trying to get my attention, so I really don't know what that was. But the one that I can remember specifically in the car with the visible water drop on my arm, I have no answer for. None. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed watching and learning about the water droplet phenomenon. If you did, hit the like button, please. And if you didn't, you can always hit the dislike button. That's totally fine. That way I know for next time. And please do leave comments, because I really do look forward to reading about all of the experiences you guys have had with this. And if you haven't, then I at least know that I'm alone in this. And I can cope with that. Thank you guys again for watching. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and turn on notifications so you get notified every time I upload. I'm Kat, and this is Paranormal Kativity. Have a strange day. Bye!